Welcome to Out of My Mouth, the program where raw thoughts meet unfiltered conversations.
Join us as we dive into the depths of human experience, where we share stories, perspectives, and insights that just might challenge the status quo.
Get ready to laugh, cry, and ponder the world around you like never before. This is Out of My Mouth.
The views and opinions of our guest and hosts do not necessarily reflect those of New Thought Media Network, or any organization we may be affiliated with. Here at New Thought Media Network, we welcome freedom of speech and courageous conversations. There are many topics that can be difficult to navigate. Challenging the status quo and engaging in lively debate is important to expanding our understanding of one another, and life in general. Creating a peaceful world doesn't happen because no one disagrees, it happens from a willingness to understanding one another. In our programming, we strive to expand consciousness and assist people in creating remarkable lives. Your comments are welcome at info@ntmedia.org.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Out of My Mouth. I'm Barbara Jean.
I'm Mark
And
Dupuy.
Cheryl Rogers.
Well, we're so excited that you're here today, where we have conversations that just go deep, far, and wide. And on that note, I'm going to get Mark to give us our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Barbara. My pleasure. Let's take a moment. Pardon me, please. Let's take a moment, sit in peaceful reflection, and express some gratitude. In the spirit of reconciliation and peace, we are grateful for the opportunity to meet on these sacred lands. We thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We recognize our oneness. We realize our history. We choose to create a new reality. We are one. Miigwech.
Which, and now I get to welcome back last week's guest on our show, Reverend Pat Bessey. As we know, Pat is a Unity minister, master prosperity teacher, seminar leader, consultant, spiritual counselor, certified life coach. Oh my gosh. And so much more. And last week we got onto the discussion was basically communication with those on the other side, and talking about death and dying, and how we don't have to be alone, but we can really I would say foster our connection with those on the other side by certain practices and things that we do. And this week, we're going to talk about the wisdom years, because that was something that came up in our pre-discussion last year, and even a little bit in the show, about the years in our, I'm going to say our last quarter. And the things that we experienced, and we spoke about how we don't really talk about that, and we don't really talk about the death and dying part of that, or the people that we lose around us. And so Rev Pat has some great insight, experience, and knowledge about that, which she's bringing to us today. So welcome, Pat.
Thank you so much. It is a delight to be back with you guys. I feel like I have a new little pod that I get to play with, and I love that. So thank you for having me back. Mm-hmm. And you were saying something to the effect of me being an expert in this field. Well, I'm not sure I'm an expert, but I do know that I'm here. I'm in this time of the wisdom years. And so and I find it it's a very exhilarating time.
Mhm.
And so when we were having a conversation last week, we kind of touched on this, and to me, this is another important area that, as you mentioned, Cheryl, doesn't get acknowledged enough.
Mhm.
We don't have the society that we live in today is very different than the society of the people that came before us, our ancestors.
Yeah.
And so what their life looked like in their wisdom years is very different
Yeah.
from what ours is looking like now.
Mhm.
And so it's an exciting time to be here.
Mhm.
And it does come with some challenges, but it also comes with some great opportunities.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so
Bef-
I'm happy to have a conversation about that.
Thank you.
Before we go on, can I just ask what you mean by acknowledged? That we don't get acknowledged.
I feel, and this comes from some of my colleagues and some people that I talk to that are in my same age group, that they're finding that their children don't seek out their advice. They don't seek out wanting to find out what they think about stuff. One of my friends says, I feel like I get set in the corner and I'm just there to look pretty, but my children don't acknowledge me and don't want to know what I think about things.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what I am meaning about the being acknowledged. And I personally have found that I personally need to start creating my own way of doing things rather than waiting. And I only have one child, and he's a grown man, and I'm not, sometimes there are things that I want to do that aren't in alignment with what he's doing. And so rather than me just sitting and waiting to get invited to something, I just create my own world.
Yeah.
And that has been satisfying for me, rather than sitting back and expecting that he's going to remember to call me, and he calls me, but to invite me to dinner or whatever. I hope that helps you a little bit with what I'm talking
Thank you. Perfect.
I'd like to add to that, and thank you, Pat. I think, when you think about past generations, families stayed together. The grandparents were around more.
Yes.
In fact, they even lived in more communal kind of gatherings, right? We
Yes.
talk about it takes a village. And I think that was a lot healthier for our kids, but that's another story. But I think the other way of that is we've become so singular, so sort of separated in our little pods, if I may. And so the kids become too busy. They don't mean to not contact us, but they're just so busy. And then after 2 weeks, it's like, oh God, I better phone my mom, or you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I think that's a part of it as well. And I think that you're wise when you say, we have to move on with our lives and do what brings us pleasure, enjoyment, and joy.
Exactly. And not only are our children too busy, and our grandchildren, if we have them, but at this stage of my life, and for many of us, we're leading full lives as well. So it's both and, and so and I'm grateful that I am in a position health-wise that I can keep being productive and doing the things that mean a lot to me. And my mom lived to be 97. And so I look at that and think, well, I've got some years left. And so I want to fulfill them in with whatever it is that brings me alive now. And so this to me is kind of like, it's almost like the breaking out years when when I can really step into who I came here to be and not worry about what people are going to think.
Mhm.
I think
That's
there's a freedom that comes with this.
Mhm.
I agree with you. I think these more senior years are actually the best years yet.
Yes.
You know, a time when we don't have to worry so much, or we simply don't worry so much about what other people think.
Mhm.
It's not like when we were 20. It's like,
Mhm.
what are
Exactly.
people going to say? But I think that's, do you think there's a greater, because of these issues of, you know, the way family sort of falls away, is there an issue with people feeling extreme loneliness if they don't go out and start filling that space with something that they enjoy?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Barbara. You hit on something that's really, really important. And
Mhm.
that is the isolation.
Mhm.
You know, Maine is the, I think it's the state that has the oldest population,
Mhm.
and isolation is a very big issue
Mhm.
in our area.
Mhm.
And the other side of that is that the person who is having difficulty with isolation won't reach out,
Mhm.
won't ask for help.
Mhm.
And so this is another place that's really, really important. And
Mhm.
I didn't intend to talk about this, but I am going to talk about this because one of the projects that I'm working on right now with some other friends is what we're calling Maine Sunshine Companions. And it's a program that identifies the isolated elderly
Mhm.
and creating a volunteer team that will go in and be friends, not go in and be caretakers, not
Mhm.
go in and do cleaning,
Mhm.
but just to go in and be friends, maybe play cards, maybe checkers, maybe whatever it is that they are would like to do, but that this person comes in once or twice a week
Mhm.
just to have connection time.
Mhm.
And we find that it's really, really an important area,
Yeah.
because what you also find is that when people are being active and they have a social life, their anxiety goes down,
Yeah.
less medications, they stay
Mhm.
more mobile. There are so many benefits when there are people that are interacting with them on a regular basis.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Are you finding people are receptive to this?
Well, we're in the pilot program of it right now, Marg, and we are really excited about it because I do believe that it is going to be a game changer.
Mhm.
I think, and part of it is that the volunteers we will find out what the client, I'm going to use client for lack of a better term, but
Mhm.
what the client's passions are, and then find a volunteer that matches that.
Mhm.
Mm.
So if there's somebody that likes to paint, then
Mhm.
find a volunteer and they go in and then they can maybe paint for a couple of hours together.
Mhm.
Finding things that are what brings them alive.
Beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I think that's going to I think that's going to be a really important
Mhm.
thing. And the other, in the summertime, somebody may want to do gardening
Mhm.
but are not motivated. But if
Mhm.
there's somebody that comes and says, "Hey, let's get out and play in the dirt," then
Mhm.
that's going to motivate them,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we know isolation, along with isolation comes depression.
Pressure.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly where I was going.
Yep.
It's very sad. It's a very sad way to end one's life.
And of
Exactly.
course,
Exactly.
COVID has really amplified the idea of isolation.
Yes.
Mhm.
There's people still who are afraid to go out
Mhm.
because they might get COVID. So I think, there, we've had a few things that set it up in a way to create a real difficult situation for,
Mhm.
especially for seniors, I think.
You're so right there. And those of us that are leading spiritual communities, we see this
Yeah.
because our attendance is down from what it was pre-COVID.
Mhm.
And if you're live streaming, then you're getting some of those people on a Sunday. But I have people who would have been there every single Sunday
Mhm.
that have not come back. They're online, but they're not in the sitting in the seats. So it has really changed the complexion of our lives in a many different ways. And this is one that I don't think has been is a good service to us. I think. But there's another piece to that too, though, that I think has happened. And I think that is that people are beginning to define what they do want.
Yes.
COVID, we got slowed down enough that now people are being very picky and choosy about the things that they do. And so it's not, there's discernment that goes on about whether I want to go do this or I want to go do that.
Yeah.
So that's, they're taking better care of themselves and not just doing everything and trying to please everybody. So I think that's an important area as well.
Absolutely.
When you were talking about children and reaching out, and my adult son called me a couple of days ago, and so that's not usual. It's not that we're not close. That's not what I'm saying, but him reaching out is not common. And so, I pick up the phone and I go, "Yeah, what's up, Sean?" He goes, "Mom, I just called to talk." And I'm like, "Okay, I know I'm being set up here." That's I call and talk to my mom, and then he got into why he was calling.
There's a reason, right? An ask or something. Yeah. Can you do me a favor? Or yeah.
Actually, he was providing me with some information, which was cool. But I was just relating to and laughing at what had just happened. And I agree with what you said, I think, Cheryl, and perhaps Pat too, that if I want to spend time with my children, most often I need to reach out to them. The positive response, but they don't think to pick up the phone and say, "Hey,
Yes.
do you wanna?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Exactly. And so our own relationships and cultivating our own group of friends is a very important part of the wisdom years. And there's I have a group of 5 or 6 women that we get together and do things together. And the other thing that we talked about was if there was some way that we could have some kind of communal living where where there is a central living room kitchen area, but everybody had their own pods for their own living space. Because here we are, all of us maintaining homes for one person.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's so the contractors and architects got to get on board with the senior. The wisdom years are the time when more and more people are going to be moving into the wisdom years because of the population.
Yeah.
And so they need to be, instead of making these high rises, they got to make these low rises, but have them so that you can have your own little place, but you're in a group with other people.
Absolutely. In community. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Because community is really what is needed for us to survive, not so much survive, but to thrive.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And that's science, right? It's proven.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. There is so much data out there now on the importance of community and connection.
One of my congregants just joined a seniors group in her area, and she's doing line dancing. She just
Yes.
retired last year. She's very young still.
Mhm.
And so she's line dancing, and she said, oh, they have pickleball, they have all kinds of things.
Mhm.
And it never occurred to me to join a seniors club.
Mhm.
I don't feel like I'm old, right? Like it's like we get caught in this place where it's like, okay, yes, I'm a senior, but I don't really feel like one. And then she's talking about going to I thought, oh, maybe it's people like me who just want to hang out and do fun stuff.
Mhm.
And anyway,
Yeah.
I thought it was great when she mentioned it. So I thought, I think I'm going to look for one in my area.
That reminds me of I have a 94-year-old, and she is just a ball of energy and everything. And she just started taking tap dancing lessons.
Wonderful.
And
Wow,
I'm
that's
telling you,
awesome.
it's so fun.
Yes.
And she is just and I keep telling her, I say, Gloria, I want to be just like you when I grow up.
That's wonderful.
But she's got, she's alone, and yet she is so involved and loves people, loves to talk, and she makes friends wherever she goes.
Mhm.
And that's, she just have her ministry is a smile ministry.
Oh, that's
She-
beautiful.
Yes, she loves to smile wherever she goes. And now this is a 94-year-old.
Yeah.
She's still driving.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
incredible.
so again, this is where we're looking at how different it is today than it was back in, 20 years ago even.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's important. And the other thing that comes along with the wisdom years also is there are some areas of my life now where I don't have what I used to have, and it comes in small places where I see, and you may be able to relate to this, but trying to get a cap off a jar that's too tight.
Yeah.
I don't have the same strength in my arms that I used to have.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I can find myself getting a little bit frustrated
Mhm.
because I expect to be able to respond in the same way that I always had. And slowly those things are changing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so again, being gentle with myself,
Mhm.
and just saying, okay, yeah,
Mhm.
that's the new you now. I can remember, I again remember my mom when she was living with us, and she had arthritis, and I know she was having a lot of pain and stuff. And she would just complain to me about this or that. And I would say, Mom, that may be the new normal now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I have to remember that for me. This is the new normal.
Mhm. Yeah.
What I used to be able to do
Yeah.
isn't
Absolutely.
right.
Yeah. I have a really funny story that my grandson loves, because we were in Portugal last year, and I've always loved jumping in the waves. I love waves. I don't like going somewhere where it's all nice and calm and quiet. I want to play in the waves, and it was just so beautiful. And he was playing in the waves, and with his mom, and I thought, I'm going to go in and I'm going to play with them. Well, wouldn't you know, I got knocked over. And I couldn't get up. I could not get up. So every time I would try, there would be this wave that would take me and push me back, and take me and push me back. And thank God my daughter-in-law came, she gave me her hand and lifted me up. Well, my grandson he still laughs about that today, loves that story, right? But I realized then, I cannot jump in the waves like I used to.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And you'd think we'd think about that, but until we actually have to experience
Yes. Yes.
to really be more aware of it. But what I wanted to say as well, Pat, is I think as well, I mean, all of us in our later years, we actually let go of some things that are not as important anymore. Right?
Right.
And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the later years is realizing, you know what, that doesn't matter. It's not serious,
Right.
you know, and choosing where to put my focus and my energy. And
Right.
so I think those are wonderful things.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And I want to say that along with the wisdom years comes a lot of wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, that's why they're called the wisdom years.
Mhm.
And so the things that we used to worry so much about,
Yeah.
and Barbara Jean spoke to that, you know, in our 20s, we were so worried about what people thought.
Yeah.
We lived our life as chameleons,
Mhm.
trying to be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
By this time, it's like,
Yeah.
who I am is what you get.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work for you, oh, so well, you
Yeah.
know, I'm not going to change.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is a lot of freedom
Mhm.
that we finally get when
Yes.
because we've lived enough now that we have seen the ups and downs of life, and we see how things do unfold if we're patient enough.
Mhm.
And so it's like we've weathered enough storms,
Mhm.
and we know that this one we'll get through this one as well.
So I know we're close to a break, and what I would like to do, if everybody's okay when we come back, is talk about the difficulties and the challenges.
Yes.
You know, like I know that my mom is 80 and her friends are dying around
Yes.
her,
Yes.
right? And what that's like. And
Yes.
yeah, I think it's important to have that conversation.
I think it is too, because it's also the conversation about what do you want? What
Yeah.
do you want when it's your time to be?
Yeah, exactly.
So
And
I think
a
it's
lot-
a great one.
I think that's wonderful. Yeah, there's more on that. And I'm going to let Barbara Jean, I think, take us into a break. And then we can come back in a couple of minutes and talk about that. What do we want? And how do we communicate that?
To our families, yes.
Exactly. Before we die, rather than leave a note somewhere.
Exactly. Yes.
Or don't leave a note. And on that note, you're watching Out of My Mouth on the New Thought Media Network, and we're going to be back in just a moment. So don't go away.
New Thought Media Network proudly presents the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series, January 31st through April 4th. Embrace nonviolence every day with our 64 unique video meditations. Join us at 6 a.m. Mountain Time or watch anytime on our YouTube channel. Featuring a collection of New Thought voices, the 2025 season for Nonviolence Meditation Series. Only on New Thought Media Network, January 31st through April 4th.
Welcome to Science of Mind Archives, your gateway to spiritual wisdom. Join us for our grand opening gala. Experience a weekend of inspiration. Enjoy a ribbon-cutting ceremony, a gala dinner and workshops, plus a labyrinth walk and town hall. Connect with a community of seekers. Explore spiritual teachings and resources. Find your path to personal growth. Join us from April 24th to 27th. Lodging options are still available. Visit our website www.scienceofmindarchives.com for more details. Please RSVP by March 15th. Featuring Reverend Jesse Jennings, musical inspirations with Karen Drucker and the spirit of Ernest Holmes. Come celebrate our new home at Unity Village, Lee's Summit, Missouri, and please visit www.scienceofmindarchives.com.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperlin Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
And we're back. You're watching Out of My Mouth here on the New Thought Media Network. And when we were going to break, Cheryl suggested we start talking about the challenges faced by all of those of us living in those wisdom years.
During the break, I thought we should have done it the other way round, right? We should have talked about all that first and then ended on a really positive note. But we've done it the opposite, and that's okay. We can still end on a positive note.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is a positive conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's true.
Seriously.
That's very true. Yeah.
Because, and this is again where it's a mindset.
Yeah.
It's a mindset when we realize that we're all going to be at that door at some point along the way. And
Yes.
there's no escaping it. It's,
Mhm.
it's the only way out.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want to leave at some point?
Yeah.
So, so when we look at it from a standpoint of, I want to leave in the very best way possible.
Yes. That's very positive.
And that's making sure for me is making sure that I have my affairs in order.
Yeah.
And my affairs go beyond my financial affairs.
Mm-hmm.
It goes to, what do I want
Mm-hmm.
as I'm moving through and out the door?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's something that people take time enough to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It's true.
Isn't that
It's a
interesting?
really-
Sorry, Barbara Jean, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's such an important part. 2 years ago, I did a living wake for a woman who had brain cancer and was using MAID to end her life about 2 months later.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the most beautiful service ever. You talk about memorial services and what they can be, celebration of life. Hers really, really was. And everybody was in the restaurant. She got to chat with everybody and say goodbyes and cry and laugh and do all the stuff that we do. And then when I spoke, I started with a joke because the tension in the room was so thick that you cut it with a knife. But that joke just sort of, it's like popping a balloon. It was like everything left. And then we could have this really heartfelt, spiritual thing that happened after that.
Yeah.
It was remarkable. It was the best experiences of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Really. So she was well aware of what she wanted to do and how she wanted to do it.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think that we do that backwards too.
Yes, me too.
I think
Just thinking that. Why don't we do that rather than the other way around?
Exactly.
I mean, to me, that is the time when you want to be hearing about how your life impacted somebody else.
Absolutely.
And so we don't offer that enough.
Yeah.
I know when my husband was in hospice, but he was here at home, people came almost daily that were close to him, and they had their conversations and stuff. And they laughed and they cried and the whole thing. And it was really beautiful because he got to hear how much he had made a difference in people's lives. And so I love what you did there. And I think it's something that, again, we can start turning that around a little bit and making it more of, even if it's not imminent, have times where you just come and just share with have your friends all come and just share. You know, tell me about what you remember about me. What are the things that you would say if I weren't here about how I impacted you? Tell me now. I want to hear it. You
And
know?
especially because I wouldn't remember anything from the past anyway.
Yes. Exactly. But you know, so going back to how do we make these decisions? First of all, I think that it's really, really important to have a advanced directive, a living will, whatever you want to call it, because again, how you want to what you want around you when you are getting ready to take that journey is really, really important. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they were talking about their mother when she was getting ready to transition. The room was full of people, children, grandchildren, and stuff. And she said it was getting close to the time, and they all left, and she stayed. And she said, I had to clean up the mess. But she said, because they were still unaware, conscious of what was really happening in that room. And I think that's part of the denial, I think, that we go through as well. I think it's very hard if we haven't had conversations about death. When it actually arrives, people just don't know how to handle it. They don't know what to say, they don't know what to do. And so it's so important to have those conversations with your loved ones. And know what you want. You know, if I'm in hospice and I'm in a hospice home, you know, I want soft music. I want somebody massaging my feet. You know, I want those kinds of things. And if I'm at home, I want also, if I'm cognitive enough to have people around me, I would like to have some visitors and stuff. So, you know, having those types of conversations is really, really important.
And you know, even saying, for example, I mean, if we don't get to do it before we go, I want a celebration of my life, right? I don't want a memorial. I want a celebration. And things like that, right? What's interesting is how we all, what's the word, are so uncomfortable. You know, somebody says, when I die, and they're like, oh, no, don't talk like that. Don't talk, right? Like that's going to cause you to die, you know? And that's one of the things that we really need to get over with. And as a society, and I don't know how we do this, but really become more comfortable with talking like that.
Well, I think it's part of I think it's part of what we do, Cheryl, in churches, is start to have these little groups, these little meetups where, you know, maybe a luncheon, and just say, come and let's talk about what you want for your end of life, and listen to other people's. Because you might hear from them. Oh, I want that. You know, if you were planning a wedding, you'd have no problem sitting around with people and asking them the things that they did at their wedding that would make more meaningful for you. Well, let's do the same thing with death. Absolutely. You know, I mean, we can start to make that shift for people, because I know when my mom, I would say to my mom, and here I was already a minister, and I would say to her, Mom, what do you want when at the end of your life? Oh, you'll know. Well, what's that? You'll know.
When I talk to my daughter and husband about my things that I would want or whatever, my daughter piped up and said, well, you're being cremated, so I want your hips. Because I've had hip replacement, so she wants those hips. She says, they won't burn. I want them.
That's funny.
And that's another conversation to have. You know, what do you want done with your body? I was having, again, these are conversations I have, and we were talking about that. Actually, I'm preparing a celebration of life for somebody, and I was talking to her ex-husband, who is really handling all of it. He's just being wonderful. And we were talking about the difference between a funeral or a grave being put in a box and put in the ground, or a cremation, or a green burial. And the first two still have taxes or ecology. The green burial is now one of the most popular because it is the most ecological.
Yeah.
And we have a green burial cemetery here, and he was telling me about his sister or somebody that they have a place behind their house where the husband is already buried, and she's going to be buried there, and it's going to be a green burial.
Wonderful.
So, but having these conversations and not being morbid, this is just another phase of life.
Exactly.
And I think when we have a belief that there's more beyond this, those conversations aren't as scary.
They're easier for sure.
Yeah.
It's because they're fear driven. If you believe that they're that this is all there is.
Yeah.
And so when we have a belief that there's more beyond this, I think it's easier for us to at least have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have two comments. One is, I think there should be a document, because you just said, okay, do you want somebody to be massaging your feet? Or I wouldn't have even thought of that. So I think there needs to be a book.
There actually is, Marg, and it's called the five invitations, I think, or the 5 wishes. Five wishes. And you can get it online, and it walks you through all of the different steps of preparation.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there is another book that I have, and it's a big binder, and in it is where you put all of your important papers. You put, any titles to vehicles, any mortgage papers, anything like that. So it's all in one book. So whoever is being left to take care of your affairs has everything at their fingertips.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to say was, so a few years back, the same son that I was talking about earlier, there was a conversation that was had that I was quite surprised at, because he doesn't like to talk about things at all except hockey. And I found out that his preference would be that I was in a coffin, so that he could have closure, so that he could see me. And I was adamant before, like, nobody's ever going to see me when I'm dead, and cremated. Bye-bye. No, none of this funeral stuff, right? This is me burying my head in the sand. And I recognized after that, I'm going to be gone. It's not about me. So there's that shift as well. Okay, what part is it about me? What part of it is about those who are left behind?
Yes.
The whole thing is about those left behind. I met a woman last summer who was talking about, she would not have anything done. She didn't want to do anything. And I went, no, I said, this isn't for you.
Yes.
This is for the people you leave behind.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be hugely expensive. You can do a service in your backyard.
Yep.
Right? It's like, so it's about people getting an opportunity, people coming together and sharing the one thing they have in common, which is the grief of the loss of that person. And it's amazing the conversations that come from that.
Absolutely.
It's such a beautiful, beautiful. I've done so many celebrations of life and memorials that I'll tell you, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's the best
I
best
love doing. Well, I shouldn't say I love doing them. I appreciate doing them so much more than weddings. I'll stay clear of weddings. But you just bring up a very good point too, Barbara Jean, and that is recognizing who the celebration of life is really for. And I will tell you, when my husband passed in January of 2022, he was cremated, and so I was not ready yet to do a celebration of life. And that's one thing cremation gives you, the chance to have a little bit of space. So I decided, okay, I was going to have a celebration of life around April. And then as April was coming, I can't do it. I can't do it yet. And so what I ended up doing was, his birthday was July 24th, and he would have been 80. And I decided that's what I was going to do. And what we did was, down at the church, we had a big fire circle and drumming, and people came and shared their stories. And that was his celebration of life.
Beautiful.
And so you can do this. Is again, there isn't a right way or a wrong way.
Yeah.
It's whatever feels right for the family and for whatever it is that person wants to have, if they've made their wishes known.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Pat.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm thinking also, so having the conversations, making, sitting down with those who are part of your family, and sometimes, it's going to take more than one or two times to get them to, it's almost like you got to spoon feed them.
Yeah.
That this isn't something that's going to happen immediately.
Yeah.
But I really would love it for you to know what I really do want. So it'll make it easier for you. And I know for people that have set up everything, I heard the family say it was just easy, because we knew exactly what was needed and what she wanted or what he wanted.
Yeah. So it's a very caring, loving thing to do for your family.
It is. Barbara Jean, I want to ask you, did you say that the person that you had the celebration of life before they passed, were they doing a medical aid?
Yes, they were doing MAID, so medically assisted.
Is it?
Yeah.
Maine has that option as well. And there is a great series, and I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Amazon Prime, called "Take Me Out Feet First."
Oh, no.
Take Me Out Feet First, and it's 6 episodes, and it's all about the medical aid in dying, and it's different situations where people have it in their state, and where people that don't have it in their state, and what that's like for them. It's a very good series. And again, this would be something that would be a conversation. The segments are less than an hour, 45 minutes. But there it is. It's so well done. And it's so clear about what is needed if you're going to take that, if you're eligible for that particular situation.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Great for our.
We were all so inspired by what you just said. 3 of our heads turned and right down.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to forget that.
It really is truly a great series. And again, it's and I've been with people who have made that decision, with people who are the survivors of somebody that made that decision. And as hard as it was for them to have that be what was going to happen, they also could see how valuable it was because they really did get the time to spend with that person.
Yeah.
And quality time while that person was still very much here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, by the time that somebody gets to visit, if they lived for not in the same area, by the time they get to see somebody, they may have already gone into a coma or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
With this, there was, it was, they were able to have that visit and do their closure.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that we've, always done this for our pets,
Yes.
but it's never occurred to us to do this for
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
are terminal and suffering immensely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great that they can have that now. I just think that's beautiful.
And we do it for our pets because we want humanely.
Yes.
It's right. So to put them out of pain or to put them out of, and like you say, but we don't want to do that for a loved one.
When this documentary was created, and I'm not sure if it's been in the last couple of years or whatever, but there were 11 states that in the United States that had the policy or the right to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what the person who was doing the documentary said, that out of all of the medications that were given, only about a third of them ever get used.
Wow.
So that means that you can get the medication, and it's almost like having a safety valve. So that you can, if the pain gets too bad, because that's what it's all about, is keeping them as comfortable as possible, then they've got it. But only about a third get used. So 2/3 of the people don't follow through with it, but they know that it's there if they want to.
It's an option. They can choose.
Option. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
They have a choice, which I think is really good, wonderful.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And also, and I find this difficult for myself, thinking about, well, one of the things that my husband and I did, because we knew that he was having some health challenges, and so we took a weekend and we went off by ourselves, and we each wrote our own obituary. And the reason that I wanted to do that was because he and I didn't get together until later in life. And I wanted to make sure that the things that he would want to have said about him were there. And so that was an important piece for us to do. And then when he did pass, my son and I, because my son is really good with words and he knew LeRoy really well, we massaged it a little bit, but the basis of it was what he had written. And that to me was a really important piece too.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have dates and places where he would have wanted people to know. I mean, he was career military, and the things that were important to him, I wanted in there.
Yeah.
So that's another really, I mean, again, you can have in our churches, we can have these little workshops where you come and, let's read our obituaries.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't mean anything other than it gives us a starting point to what, and helping our families to make sure that who we are and what we want people to know about us is said.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's it's for that reason. And I think it's a wonderful reflection exercise.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Because we got the chance to talk about some of those things, and he got to talk about some of the things that he laughed about, some of the things that happened. So it was a time for us to really do a life review.
Yeah.
And that can be quite fun because we end up sharing details that, your family didn't even know about you.
Exactly.
And that's, my husband and I were doing something like that the other day. And I was just sharing a whole bunch of memories that I had as a child, because it's easy to talk about, oh, this terrible thing happened.
Right.
But how often do we talk about this wonderful thing
Right.
happened?
Right.
Mhm.
Yes.
We
Yes.
would have these giant water fights in the house. Mom would join in even. We
What a
would-
wonderful mom.
Yeah.
I would never allow that, not in a million years. But she did. It was the most fun of all. You know,
wow.
running around with buckets of water or the spray
Good
hose
for
from the
her.
kitchen sink. My brother one day went outside and grabbed the hose from outside.
Wow. Wow. I don't think I could have even allowed that if I was the mom.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I wouldn't have. But I think it's wonderful when moms can actually let go of all that
Yes.
stuff and
Oh
Yes.
just
my gosh!
have
Yeah.
fun with their kids, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ex-
I
Yep.
said to Kevin the other day, I said, why do we have to mold kids a certain way? Because
Right.
that's what we're doing.
Exactly.
Right? Why
Yes,
can't we
it is.
just
Mistake.
let them be themselves
Yeah.
and, love them for who they are?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just a whole other can of worms, Cheryl. I think we could
Yeah.
have a whole conversation on that because
Absolutely, because some people are going to be like, no, they need discipline, right? And because Kevin's like a discipline, I'm like, that's old school. You got to let go of that now.
Yeah. No, they don't need that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They need
Yeah.
to
There's a
find their own
balancing act.
rhythm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! It is.
But and that's another thing, though, as well, is that a lot of people or religions keep kids away from
Yeah.
from
Oh.
death and dying and funerals and
Yes. Yes.
and I think
Mistake.
that's one of the reasons we're not comfortable with it.
Right. Right.
Right. So it's important to include kids.
Exactly. I'm gonna pivot a little bit because this is a really important piece too. And that is if you do have somebody that you're caring for and you can see that they're slipping,
Mm-hmm.
it is best for you to reach out to hospice.
Mm-hmm.
Hospice you don't have to be in your last weeks of life to get on hospice.
Okay.
And the reason that it's important to have hospice in early
Mm-hmm.
is because they can provide you with an awful lot of things that you might need as things start to go downhill.
Okay.
And they will get them to you just like that.
Wow.
And so to get evaluated,
Mm-hmm.
just have them come and evaluate the person.
Mm-hmm.
And for my mom, we didn't think she was anywhere near hospice,
Mm-hmm.
but somebody told me to do that. And the reason that she got accepted into hospice was because she was losing weight. And I can't tell you the number of arguments that we had because I wanted her to eat more.
Mm.
And when hospice came on board and she was still living at home, they would come once a week and check on her. Nothing big, but they were there if you needed them. And they told me when they start to slow down on eating, it's their bodies starting to shut down.
Mm.
So let them eat what they want. Don't try to force them.
Right.
And boy, if I had known that ahead of time,
Mm-hmm.
I would have saved us a lot of arguments.
Oh,
Certainly would. Well, we've come to the.
What was that, honey?
I was just going to say we're coming to the end of our time.
I know.
So, what is one thing that you would really love people to take away from this conversation?
Don't fear death.
Yes.
It's just a crossing into the next room.
There you go.
Nobody dies.
yeah. This is just a vehicle.
Exactly. We just got this costume on.
We're going to lay it down and we're going to continue. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Pat.
Closer than when they're here in physical body.
That's
Yeah,
true.
absolutely. It's been
So
wonderful.
So grateful, Reverend Pat, that you could be here with us.
Thank you.
Cheryl and Marg, love working with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, ladies.
likewise, Barbara.
Yeah, and
This has been
And
good.
Deja.
And
Deja.
Deja in the background,
and
doing all the hard
Maple,
work.
our producers, Deja and Maple.
Yeah.
Thank you. and like, share, and subscribe.
Subscribe.
And
You're
we'll
watching
see
Out of
you.
My Mouth on the New Thought Media Network.
You
See you next
guys are the
week.
best.
See you next time. Thank you, Reverend Pat. Bye, everybody.
Next week. Bye.
Bye.